Turning to the release today of the draft plan for the Murray-Darling Basin.
The ABC's environment reporter Connor Duffy joins us now from Hindmarsh Island in South Australia. Connor, good morning. We've heard from the authorities head Craig Knowles, we've heard from the politicians, but I'm interested to know what you've heard from the people on the ground as to the first reactions for this draft plan released today.
Well, good morning, Francis. I've spent about a week travelling through various parts of the basin, talking to the people most affected by this, the farmers and irrigators on the ground and the environmentalists who live in the community. And in the euphemistically called plain English guide to the basin, which is quite a complicated document that seems to lack a bit of a clear narrative. It says the aim of the plan is to achieve a healthy working basin with strong communities and strong environments. Now, critics on both sides are saying it's not going to go anywhere near achieving either of those outcomes. Environmentalists had wanted cuts of about 4,000 gigalitres a year, up to 7,000 gigalitres. Irrigators don't want to give up any of that precious water that really sustains their economies and sustains the economies of rural towns. And one place we've been to is Burke, which suffered huge water cuts, and you can really see the impact that that's had there. Now, there's fears in particularly the southern basin states, southern parts of the basin, which covers New South Wales, Victoria and South Australia, that are in line for the biggest cuts, that those cuts could have a similar effect there and really damage the fabric of rural life throughout the basin.
And Connor, we heard the Water Minister Tony Burke say earlier today that there's never been a consensus on what to do with the Murray-Darling Basin plan, and there never will be. Is that the sense that you're getting from the people you've been speaking to?
That's right, and in fairness to the authority and the minister, this is a hugely complex issue. We're talking about an area that covers Queensland, Victoria, New South Wales, South Australia and the ACT. It's 1 million square kilometres, it's got 23 river systems, and it's a hugely controversial public policy issue. And I really think the debate's only going to get more rancorous over the next few weeks. This, of course, is a draft plan, and there's now going to be a 20-week consultation period. So you can bet your last dollar that both sides of this debate are going to be doing some pretty furious lobbying down in Canberra before this is passed into law to push their side of the agenda. There's also going to be some interesting politics involved in this. South Australia feels it has the most to lose being at the bottom of the basin from if the cuts aren't enough. There's 2 million tonnes of salt that needs to be shifted out to sea. The South Australian Premier has foreshadowed a High Court challenge, and there'll be quite extreme pressure, I believe, put on federal state MPs here to maybe take a different approach to their official party line. It will be interesting to see how it does play out between the various states and the Commonwealth. But Connor, you mentioned there the 20-week consultation period. The problem last year from the viewpoint of a lot of the irrigators was that there was no consultation before the guide to the draft plan was released, and then it was dumped on them, and that's when we saw those scenes of the plan being set on fire. You mentioned that you thought there'll be a fairly rancorous consultation period. How are they approaching it differently this time, though? Well, I think both sides have been really gearing up, from my conversations with them, to hit it as hard as they can in this 20-week period. Some of the irrigation groups say they won't be surprised if they see similar scenes to last time, with the burning of the report in places like Griffith and Deniliquin, and indeed the Murrumbidgee River, which feeds a lot of the industry and the agriculture around Griffith, is an area that's identified in the plan as being one that's in pretty poor shape, and I presume that's one that's going to be targeted for water cuts. So I think you'll see probably a fairly heated response from both sides. Some environmental groups have given the draft report 0 out of 10, and this consultation period and this plan isn't a surprise to either side. It was only publicly released at midnight last night, but both groups, conservation groups and a lot of the main irrigation groups, have been briefed about this over the last couple of weeks and would have been well aware of most of what was going to be released today.
Connor Duffy, thanks very much for your insights this morning, and we look forward to your reports as this process ramps up once again.
Thanks, Francis.